Anyway, but I did want to touch on one point that people ask is like, how are you so sure about Islam, or why would you choose Islam over the other religions? And there's a lot of reasons why. You can go into the linguistic miracles of the Quran, the scientific miracles of the Quran. But for me, like, my confidence in Islam was built so early in the beginning and was such a strong foundation because just by nature of like how Islam was delivered to me, I guess. So at the time I was raised Christian/Catholic. So that's kind of how I identified, but like loosely practicing, right? As a lot of Christians are. And I had not really practiced until I got to university. And then I decided to look more into it and I started following a church and I guess was practicing as much as you could be anyway. But then I just had a lot of questions and things weren't making sense to me and people didn't want to answer my questions. So I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I'm just going to look into other things. I looked into Buddhism. I looked into all the faiths except for Islam. And it wasn't because I had bad views of Islam. I had like literally no view of Islam, but I didn't think that it was something that you could like convert into. And I guess some of my like thing with that is because I have a sibling who is half Israeli. His dad is Israeli and Jewish. And there were issues there in terms of like converting. So I just assumed it was maybe like a similar situation where it was like difficult to convert into. Anyway, I reached a point where I was like, you know what? I know what I believe. I know that I believe in one God and I believe in one creator of everything that exists. So I'm just going to worship that creator as best I can. And I did that by writing like letters to God. And I had this journal that I would write in every night. And I remember just writing basically like whatever the truth is, whatever the true faith is and best way to worship you is, show that to me because I want to do this correctly. I want to worship you in the way that you want me to worship you. Anyway, I just remember at the time making like sincere prayers for God to guide me to what was best. And when I tell you that Islam was literally delivered to me on a silver platter, that is not an exaggeration. And because it was done in that way, I knew that that was the answer to my prayers. And it was like immediate, literally immediate. So at the time I was in university and I was working in a like a convenience store in the neighborhood of my university. And one of my coworkers, she had recently gone to Morocco. And I think she went during Ramadan. And she basically was kind of saying, you know, the way that, sorry, my khamar is getting pulled here by my child. The way that they practice their faith and the way they talk about God and all of that was really beautiful. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And it kind of just like set off like alarm bells for me of, I wonder, you know, what this is about, because I've looked at all the religions so far and I'm a researcher. I like to research. So I was like, let me just look into it just to see what it is, to kind of complete my religious studies, if you will. And she had mentioned about reading the Quran. And at the time, I thought she was going to end up converting to Islam. And I was like, oh, like, you know, I guess take your time, don't rush into anything type thing. And sure enough, it ended up being me who converted. So within like the week that she had made those comments, but because our job was not very busy, we were just kind of, you know, serving students basically when they came to get drinks or snacks or whatever. I just spent my shifts on my phone, reading the Quran on my phone. And it was very quick when I realized like, okay, this is basically the answer to my prayers and what I've been looking for. Because it wasn't like I embraced Islam and then felt like I had to conform myself to fit the faith. The faith already fit what I already believed in. It just was giving a name basically to the way that I viewed God and the way that I believed in our creator. So it was just so natural. And I literally just started with looking up, you know, what is Islam? Like, what is the core foundational faith of Islam? And it literally, like, point by point matched what I already believed in. So at this point, it was like a thought in my head of, I know that this is the truth. And there's like no turning back kind of thing, because God knows that I have recognized in my heart and in my mind that this is the truth. So if I turn away from it, He knows that I am actively choosing to turn away from what is the truth. So it really wasn't a question of whether or not I would convert. It was just when. And I think I ended up converting within like 2 months of first even looking into Islam or having any concept of Islam whatsoever, because I literally just sat there and researched obsessively and was just so blown away and so amazed by every new thing that I learned that all I was doing was waiting until I could get to a masjid to go take my shahada, because I was in the UK at the time. And in the summer, I went to Florida to stay with my uncle. And subhanAllah, this is like the time in which I converted. So many like miraculous things happened that just confirmed over and over for me that I was doing the right thing and that this was the right path. Last thing, and then I will take this baby to sleep, I promise. But yeah, basically, I went to stay in his house in the summer. And the first thing I did when I got there is get Google Maps on my phone and look up where the closest mosque was so I could go take my shahada. And it said it was literally like right next to me. And so I was like, that's weird. And so I go look out the window. Yes. Sorry, this is the real life with 3 children. So anyway, I go to look out the window and there's like a line of trees. And like his neighborhood, bear in mind, is in the middle of nowhere. If you've been to Florida, like everything's very kind of spaced out. So it's like communities, like little tight communities, and then there's a lot of land between it. So I went and looked out the window in the direction of where this mosque supposedly was, and I just see this little gold shimmer in the tree line of the minaret, and it was like right there. And like it was like, what are the odds that there is a mosque right there? So basically I then emailed the mosque, got in touch with the imam, and just walked over in the day within like that week to go take my shahada in the mosque. I've never been back to that mosque ever again. I just took my shahada there and then came back to England at the end of the summer. But yeah, basically.
My beloved brothers and sisters, calling people to Islam is one of the greatest deeds a Muslim can do. It is not just about words, but about showing others the beauty of Islam through kindness, wisdom, and good character. When you invite others to the truth with sincerity, you are walking in the footsteps of the prophets who dedicated their lives to guiding humanity. Allah promises immense rewards for those who call others to Islam. Even if one person accepts Islam through your effort, it is better than the entire world and everything in it. The reward continues for as long as the person prays, does good deeds, and spreads Islam further, all of it being counted for you as well. When giving da'wah, it is important to do it with gentleness and patience. People are more attracted to good manners and compassion with harsh words. Answer questions with wisdom, share the Quran, and remind others that Islam is a religion of mercy and peace. Never underestimate the power of your words and actions. Even a simple conversation, a kind gesture, or sharing a verse from the Quran can inspire someone to seek the truth. If Allah guides someone through you, it is a blessing that will shine for you in this life and the next.